So once again, good morning to everyone and welcome to the third day and the final day of our international online conference on renewable music. We begin today with a roundtable discussion featuring representatives of partner organizations as well as participants of the Creative Europe project Renewable Music Before Composers for Sustainability, of which this conference is the concluding stage. So I have the pleasure to introduce our panelists. We have with us Mieczysław Kominek, President of the Polish Composers Union. We have Eva Kesslová, Managing Director of Berg Orchestra from Czech Republic. We have Oľga Smetanová, Chair of Waves Bratislava, a Slovakian organization.
Hello, everyone.
And we have Béla Simon, Vice President of the New Hungarian Music Association, UMZE. Additionally, we also have with us 4 composers selected to participate in our project. That is Kasia Krzewińska from Poland. We have Máté Balogh from Hungary, Samuel Hvozdík from Slovakia, and Ian Mikyska from Czech Republic. So welcome once again to everyone. Before we start the real discussion, I would like to briefly describe the foundations and objectives of our project to ensure that everyone has some basic understanding of our past actions. So the Renewable Music Project began in 2023, a year ago, with a call for young composers from the Visegrad Group countries. Rather than a traditional call for scores, it was a call for ideas, as we asked the participants to submit drafts of their planned chamber pieces inspired by the concept of renewability in music. At this stage, we already noticed the diverse approaches composers had towards this concept. In autumn the same year, we organized a series of workshops for the 4 selected composers, whom we have with us today. These workshops were designed to familiarize them with our pre-selected concert sites, including gardens in the heart of Warsaw and Prague, a green roof atop a shopping mall and bus station in Bratislava, and an open-air stage in a city park in Budapest. So we asked the composers to incorporate the surrounding sounds of these various performance sites into their works, thus fostering a dialogue with the environment. During these workshops, they also met with the 4 ensembles who would premiere their new works, which facilitated further discussions and consultations throughout the composing process. Additionally, the composers had the opportunity to listen to inspiring talks on music and ecology by invited experts from each partner country, which initiated international collaboration and networking between them. This summer, 2024, we witnessed the premieres of 4 new pieces of music in the 4 partner countries. These performances featured local ensembles, enhanced by musicians from partner ensembles as part of the International Artist Exchange Program. The concerts were accompanied by open rehearsals, masterclasses with project composers, and all these events were free of charge and open to the public. So now, before we start the actual discussion, I would like to ask composers to say a few words about their pieces, which are the core of our project. So whoever is willing to share their thoughts first. Máté.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Agnieszka. Dear colleagues, my name is Máté. I am from Hungary. I was one of the chosen composers of this project, and now I have 5 minutes to share my thoughts on my own piece. So, as you may know, we were asked to write new pieces somehow associated with the idea of the renewability and sustainability. And in my case, it is a very specific case, because in my piece, the piece itself, inside the piece, uses the idea of this renewability as part of the structure of the composition. I chose a text, a well-known text by Henry David Thoreau, the American philosopher, who, as you may know, was the first person who lived independently from the modern civilization. And this action of his is considered one of the first manifestations of civil disobedience, to be independent from the society, to be independent of the machine of the state. And in his piece Walden, there is a chapter entitled Sound. Surrounding sounds, the surrounding natural sounds around him, and how these sounds are totally independent from any meaning. When there is a locomotive somewhere behind the forest, and there are some bird songs and so on, but just for itself, as the music, as waves, as melodies, he was able to define those melodies as abstract realities. So my idea was to reuse these texts and reuse again and again inside my piece with a different articulation. Somehow, like the very famous piece by Alvin Lucier, the American composer, I'm sitting in a room. You may know that he recorded his voice over and over again on the same tape, and then after a while, the sound changed totally, and there was a meaningless speech, which had the declamation of the original speech, but which was more interesting. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should check this piece by Alvin Lucier, because it's very beautiful. So yes, I still have 3 minutes. So this is my piece, a thorough second hand, because I reused the thorough idea. I used the wind instruments, a narrator, which is amplified, which was myself in that case, and wind instruments and some percussion instruments, which were reused, recycled objects like beer bottles and metal cans and some pieces of wood and these kind of things. You can take a look at here. So. So someone could say that my piece is actually a variation on the same idea, and again using the text as a base, but the instrumentation, how it is orchestrated, is always different. So the very first action is very simple. The percussion instrument, the recycled percussion instrument, try to mime the speech, try to imitate the speech. Just shortly to show you.
I'm sitting.
Can you hear? Yes.
At my window this summer afternoon. Hawks are circling about my clearing. The tentativity of wild pigeons flying by twos and threes athwart my view.
And so on. So this is the step one. But actually, there's just only one individual instrument which imitates the. There's another piece of mine, if you have time to check later, the 3 Jim Carrey speeches, when there are Jim Carrey speeches imitated by a trombone, if you have time later. And then the next stage is when the whole orchestra does the same as here.
Farmer's yard informing me that many restless city merchants are arriving within the circle of the town.
And then there's a third kind of variation inside the piece, when the structure of the text, the different syllables and vowels are translated or transcribed into a tutti situation. So every vowel is a kind of chord, and it is a scale, the high vowels and the low vowels. So the chord has also this kind of scale, while the short syllables also associated with individual pitches. And when there is the syllable, then this individual exact pitch comes. So it's a kind of transcription, which gives them the intention of a machine. And here the text says something about a locomotive.
When I meet the engine with its train of cars moving off with planetary motion, or rather like a comet, for the beholder knows not if with that velocity and with that direction.
So I'm all 5 minutes. If you are looking for any more, baloghmate.com. See you.
Thank you so much, Máté, for being so good with timing. But like for other composers, if you want to talk for 6 or 7 minutes, it's also okay. Don't worry. So thank you so much, Máté. And who next? Who is next? Who would like to share something about this work?
I can be next.
Okay, Kasia.
I can be next. Okay, hello everybody. My name is Kasia Krzewińska, and I'm a participant and composer from Poland. So I wrote a piece, Green and Blue Dreaming, and from the very beginning we knew that the project will be going on not in the concert halls but outside areas, and that was one of the best things for me personally. So I was kind of inspired by this, because it combines the city and the nature, because we were looking for some areas inside the city, nature areas inside the city. So my idea was to combine nature sounds and city sounds into one piece. And I decided to create the whole audio structure from the field recordings, basically. And that was it was the first thing I did. I tried to capture sounds from the nature and sounds from the city, modern sounds. And then I created electroacoustic tape from it. Also, I wanted to show the audience the symbolic side of it. And I created an installation with the objects. 3 objects are nature related. That was brush, flowers, and water. And 3 other objects were kind of modern world related. And that was phone. We are very close with our phones. That was a clock. And that was also money. So the installation worked with this MIDI controller, which works on conductivity. And when the musicians touched the object, the audience could hear some sounds. And yes, maybe Agnieszka, could you please play some part of my piece?
Yes, of
That
course.
would be maybe easier.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you all see and hear? See?
Yeah.
Good.
I can't really hear it. I'm not sure if it's that, only me or...
Yes, you can hear?
It works for me. Yeah, I could hear.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So
we'll-
maybe that's my problem.
Silent, but I can hear it.
Yeah, because the beginning of the work is quite silent, but we'll go here. I think it's enough, Kasia.
Yes, thank you, Agnieszka, for showing this exact part
Okay.
when we can see the object. So now you can imagine how did it work. Here you can saw, for example, the flowers, and I pre-recorded some sounds in the nature, and then I connected to this MIDI controller and to the very specific object. And maybe I will also say something about those field recordings itself, because it became very important. Well, it became a structure for the whole piece, and I use it in different ways. Some of those recordings were used just as original WAV files, especially longer ones. So, for example, from the seaside or footsteps on the snow, there were some fragments that gives nice background for musicians just to play with it, along with it. On the other hand, some of those recordings were used as samples. So I cut it, I transform it, but not so much. So usually it was just warped in time or used in different tonation. And the third way of using it was to create some virtual instruments from it. So the sounds I captured in the nature or in the city, I transformed into, let's say, playable sounds. So it became a real instrument that can be as important as the acoustic ones. So yes, maybe that's enough from me.
Thank you, Kasia. We will have questions later, so thank
Sure.
you for now. And now, who's next? Ian, Samuel?
Samuel, could you go, just because I will talk very similarly to Kasia, so if you talk for a few minutes, everyone will forget about the field recordings and then it'll be interesting again.
That's okay. Okay, hi, I'm Samo. I'm from Slovakia. And I wrote a piece for this project called Stigma. It is piece for bass flute, bass clarinet, trombone, violin, viola, cello, double bass, and electronics. For me, this piece is really it is really important for this piece to see it in a context of my work from approximately from year 2017, when I composed my orchestra piece, Taurus. From that point, I was working on evolution of the same material in my different pieces. In next piece, I used some of the material of the previous piece and enriched it and changed it. And on that basis, I composed my next piece. It is now Stigma is the fifth evolution of the material, and of course this material now is completely different, and from each piece I took a different principle or different element which I used in the next piece. And this Stigma, this piece is like merging, like a synthesis of two pieces, two of my previous pieces. One is Na mene nezáleží. Translation is The Name Doesn't Matter, which is a piece for ensemble and without electronics, and then piece Blankets of Dependence, which is for ensemble and electronics. I took different elements from both of the pieces, but the core element was simplicity, like a really simple principle. My piece, the stigma piece, is about one chord throughout the whole piece, and I took form from both pieces, and then a gradation from Na mě nezáleží and electroacoustic blending, codependence of players, and delay in electronics from piece Blankets of Dependence. So yes, this is about my piece, and you can maybe see that this renewability of material at some point is there in my work. So yes, that's what was important for me in this project. Maybe we can play some fragment from the video.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samo. Maybe I will just mention that all the recordings that I've presented so far are from our premiere concert in Prague. So maybe Eva will tell us a little bit more about it later. And now I will invite Ian to share his piece.
Yes, thank you, Agnieszka. Hi, everyone. My name is Ian Mikyska. I live in Prague. And my piece was called Forest Trees, which already suggests a little about the kind of main theme of it. Of course, it arose from this idea of the concerts taking place not in a concert hall, but in situ, in a specific place. At the very beginning of the project, the concert for Prague was planned for the Seminary Garden on Petřín Hill, which is, I can just about see from the window here, and it's quite a strange place in Prague. It's a very large natural park in the very, very center of the city, right next to the Prague Castle. It's quite a steep hill, so it had a lot of different uses over time. It made it impossible to build, but there were vineyards. There was a lot of mining of limestone. It was a very strong spiritual place in both pagan times and then also Christian times. There are several churches on it. And it's quite a good demonstration, I think, or a good case study of this idea that we don't really have this pure nature anymore, or very little, even in the places where it is very pure. But that's also kind of liberating, I think, in a way where you don't have to feel guilty that you're not going to the real nature, but you can kind of find some meaning in just the park that's next to your house. So I planned my piece quite in contact with this hill. A lot of the field recordings that I used, like Kasia, a lot of them were made there, but also quite a lot of them involve other, not just the natural sounds, but also kind of civilizational sounds like car horns, for example. I'm going to try and share my screen and just quickly go through part of this presentation. Let's see. Yes, so this I already spoke about a little bit, and then obviously the title suggests this kind of relationship between the individual, the part, the one note, and the whole group, the ensemble, the chord, the counterpoint, and so on. And there were a few other dichotomies that I was working with, which was noise and pitch. The piece starts with all the instruments playing only either very soft, almost unhearable material, or these kind of noises. These noises were also something that I quite enjoyed putting in because I knew this piece would be performed by 4 different ensembles with quite different musicians. So all of these noises are open to the musician's interpretation. So each group chose a different set of sounds, and the resultant pieces were all very different in the end. Then I wanted to have this contrast of something very flowing, very kind of natural, and fluid, let's say, and somehow shifting and melting, in contrast with something quite rigid. So I kind of I took a very loose inspiration from Vivaldi's 4 Seasons, and the entire piece is kind of conceived as 1 year, divided quite strictly into a month and a week, and this is all marked by the percussionist. So there's an extremely regular structure going on the whole time that really doesn't deviate at all. But the way that works with the music inside it changes every time. So I'm going to try and play you a little bit of that so you can hear it. And as you could hear, there are a few things there as well. The second time, Aura, the percussionist from Umza Ensemble, played the crotal, which is the sound that marks these week passings. He played it twice, which means it's the second week in a month. So really, this was a kind of surprise discovery, but you'd be surprised at how useful it is to have a signal like this. Like, this was the first piece where I think nobody got lost at any point during any of the rehearsals. And you also heard another important element there, which are these electromagnetic interruptions, or interferences, sorry. And so that's the sound you hear if you have your phone on near a speaker or something, but also some more sounds of this nature that are recorded with an electromagnetic pickup. And these are kind of extensions of this idea between nature and culture or civilization. And they also kind of give us the rhythmical foundation for it, because basically there's this contrast between the really flowing, very often glissando sections that are really kind of static or melting, and then these interruptions that have this kind of limping rhythm, or these kind of falling apart rhythms. I can show some examples. It was mostly these kind of quintuplet figures contrasted with the very straight material here. And now I'll just quickly talk about the pitches. Basically, I wanted with this also for the pitch content of the piece to develop out of the sounds outside. So the church bells were really important. They were kind of mirrored by the crotales. Then there were also the car horns that you heard a little bit. And then there was these electromagnetic sounds and the drones that they generated. And I kind of enjoyed using this input material to create these kind of pseudo-tonal sections, which I'll show you now. So you could hear there a little bit of these dominant tonic relationships. My idea for this was kind of that out of kind of the rubbish of all these electromagnetic sounds and car horns and so on would develop this sort of classical structure, but in a kind of twisted and transformed way. And the last thing I would like to show you, oh yeah, I have some examples from the score of how the glissandi work, and also there was a lot of microtonal harmony that came really from the sounds in the environment. And finally, just a little thing. Basically, I had this big set of PVC pipes that I used for a theater performance a few years ago. Then we reused them with the Berg Orchestra for a piece I did for them. It was kind of a light design piece. And then for this piece, I had them made into overtone flutes, which is for us in this region is a very typically Slovak folk instrument sound, but here on these very cheap materials. And I will just show you a little example. We're almost there. Actually, I'll just let it play, and I'll show you some of the notation that I use for that as well. Okay, and I think that's everything for me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ian. If I may, I will just add that during open rehearsals, people were quite confused by these electromagnetic interferences, and they actually wondered if maybe their phones were causing them.
Yeah, and I think this is also, I've had this a few times, and I always forget to tell the sound engineer, because the people are confused, but the sound engineer begins to panic immediately.
Yes, yes. So as you can all see, we in our project, we focused on the composers, and we wanted to give them as much freedom as possible in terms of expression, form, instrumentation, etc. So before we open the discussion to the public, I would like to first invite our project partners to say a few words. And maybe my first question would be, what is your perspective on the commissioned pieces? And are the composer's concept in line with your understanding of renewability in music? Yes, Béla. You're muted. Sorry, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity to say a few words about how we followed up the concept and the compositions. Of course, as an organizer, my challenge was how to implement these ideas to the most suitable environment in Budapest. And primarily, we had to find a right venue where this concept can be realized. And of course, we had the given buildings, parks, and so on. But the challenge was to choose what we thought was the best for the realization. Obviously, putting the concert into just a simple concert hall and play it on stage as normally we play concert wasn't an option, because it had nothing to do with the concept we just heard, renewability and all the related topics. So for me, I think we had a great luck with the House of Music in Budapest where the concert was happening, because I think the building itself is a manifestation of how to connect modernity, modern architecture with nature and sustainability. I don't want to describe the building itself, but I do think that it's on its own, it's a exceptional piece of architecture created by a Japanese architect and installed into the city park in Budapest. And looking back at the selection process and the possibilities we went through, I thought this was the ideal scene for the realization of the concert in Budapest. So from the organizer's point of view, of course, the challenge is how to give the most possible ideal scenario for a project. And I hope the scene in Budapest and the concert, the place we chose didn't disappoint anyone.
It was beautiful. As to Prague, the Berg Orchestra has been doing site-specific projects and projects with sound ecology for many, many, many years. I think since 2005. And we sometimes even included sound walks into our concerts and so on. So for us, choosing the place, as Jan mentioned, originally we thought that the Strahov garden would be the best, but then we realized we can't really control the sound environment there because it's open to public anytime. So a party of young people could really have a party there. Therefore, in the end, we chose a garden that is in the middle of Prague, and barely anyone knows about it because it is part of a hospital. And therefore, we chose this one. Moreover, there is Antonín Dvořák's museum really next door. So Antonín Dvořák was literally there watching also the concert. And it's a garden that is in the middle of the city, but a little bit distant. So we had the environment we wanted to have a quiet place for the pieces to stand out. But at the same time, we could hear the city sounds, which I thought it was very important for all the pieces, if I'm not mistaken, for the composers. So that's the place we chose in the end in Prague, and it was not so easy. We had gone through like 30 gardens in person, and we were considering even more. But in the end, I think we were lucky with this one. So, yeah. And as to renewability, we always encourage our composers to use what we have in our storages. And I was very happy that Ian actually used his PVC flutes again. we even like had a new performance piece done only out of our storages, so that we don't really produce any unnecessary waste. Or, you know, we collected metronomes for Ligeti's famous work, Poèmes Symphoniques, so that people don't throw the metronomes away. So now we have a wonderful collection of metronomes. So yeah, so that's probably it as to the project.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you so much for this insight. So maybe building on that point, you would like to join Oľga?
Yes. I would like to say that this the goal of this renewable music concerts, as I understood it, was to align music with the environment, and that's why we used unique different venues. And actually the four distinct environments, which was the garden, which Eva mentioned, it was a tent in Warsaw, it was the outdoor arena of the concert hall in Budapest, and in Bratislava it was a roof garden and the shopping mall. And all these diverse places created also challenges for composers, I think, and the diverse kind of settings for them to overcome. And I think that to deal with these urban ambient spaces and the natural elements led to maybe not only new challenges that I said, but also composers had to adapt to a different soundscapes. And I think at the end they did it excellently. In Bratislava, we on top of everything, of course, there was a risk of the weather, which we have to take into account. But in Bratislava, unfortunately, this unpredictable weather of the particular day added the stress, specifically for the organizers, but also for the performance. And although the weather forecast fluctuated at the same day, and we decided to keep this outdoor play still as a preference of the concert, rain eventually arrived after the performance, so the musicians were able to pack safely their equipment, and we were happy that we didn't have to pay any extra on the damage of the technical equipment. So also these challenges illustrate the unpredictable nature of these eco music performances, and highlight sort of importance of adapting to the different settings of the works itself, but also the logistics which is involved in organizing the concert. So despite that, all included, I think it demonstrates that that it is important to deal with this experimental projects, environmental and environmental consciousness, and it also has some challenges which I would like to also underline and very shortly. I think that someone or myself, I would be interested in listening to the same pieces into the normal setting of the prepared concert audience. It would be very interesting for me to compare our recordings and maybe in the future some performance in the classical concert venue. I think our project in a way encouraged flexibility and improvisation, which is very important. We knew it from the beginning, but we had to go through it and realize it in a real life. So I think that this flexibility and improvisation gives performers a certain way of freedom and also responsibility, and it also engage with and expands the performance sort of ideas how to perform. So it brings something new to their performances. Also presses the composers to think about the environment in a different way, because it of course has constraints for their artistic expression and they have to take it into account in some way. This enhances the the audience engagement. So we had to take into consideration these different places and different kind of attitude of the audience. But to say that, I want to say something which may be going against our project, which is not, in fact, but I just want to underline, understanding all these challenges which we went through, that it is important to recognize that not every artist feel comfortable in such kind of openness, that maybe some artists still prefer the control and precision way of doing concerts. They prefer traditional venues because the setting is more calm or more traditional in a way, technically less challenging. So we have to sort of, even though we went through this process and we want to bring this knowledge to our colleagues, we still have to understand that maybe some performers, even composers, don't want to go this road. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olga. You actually touched a lot of interesting subjects that I think it would be worth to discuss later. But maybe first a few words from Mieczysław about the venue in Warsaw.
Yes, Béla said about piece of architecture in Budapest where concert was going on. So in Warsaw, we also had a piece of architecture, namely the King Castle in Warsaw. It's really a piece of architecture, of course. We wanted to place the concert at the beautiful garden of Royal Castle. But look out for the sound of the city. This beautiful garden at the Royal Castle is very near to highway, and noise from this highway was so huge that we decided to move the place of the concert into the King Castle yard, which was much more silent. So we had to escape from this highway, from this sound of the city, sound of cars, and it is the case to you have to escape from city sound. It was impossible to have concert at this beautiful King Castle. But we were happy to have our concert in the frame of nice festival named Gardens. So we were not in the King Garden, below at this highway, but anyhow we were the part of Gardens festival.
Yes, I will just add that it was the Music Gardens Festival, not only gardens, but music gardens. And it was in a tent which was built in the courtyard of the Royal Castle. And the tent was surrounded by plants. So they really built like a hidden garden atmosphere. It's in the heart of Warsaw, where all the life or the tourists are. So it was a really nice experience there also. So now, should we open our...
Agnieszka, you got muted.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So I'm wondering if we should now open the discussion to the public, because we have 10 minutes, although the next session, we had the last minute cancellation. So during the next session, we'll have only 2 speakers, not 3. So if there is a need, we can extend our discussion a little bit. But do we have any questions from the participants, from the audience? You can raise your hand or just join the discussion. No questions so far?
I might comment on the weather element, actually, because all the concerts took place in Central Europe, and the weather here is unpredictable, unlike from the US, where I lived for a little while. There are many summer concerts, and the weather is much more reliable than here. So actually, we had to come up with plans for every moment of the rehearsal process, if in case it was bad weather. So we had like a scenario A, B, C, D for each moment of the rehearsal process, if in any case it would be raining. So that was really production-wise challenging, but we knew what we were expecting, so we were happy to embrace this unpredictability.
Yes, thank you, Eva. So what were the other challenges? Maybe it is something worth discussing, because there were a lot of challenges while implementing this project.
Actually, the Prague concert was the first one, and Kasia Krzewińska found out that as the musicians had to be barefoot, and the installation was on the floor in the grass, and it was triggered by, closing the circuit, the electric circuit. And it was found out that actually the wet grass closed the circuit all the time. Therefore, you could maybe see the PVC foils on the ground, because otherwise the sounds would have been triggered all the time. So that was also interesting. I was wondering whether the musicians would be happy to be barefoot in the garden, but as it was really warm weather, it was very hot. There were no objections from the musicians.
Perhaps I can add some benefits as well, not just challenges, saying that as we had 4 projectors, 4 different places, and Prague was given the first world premiere, and the organizers were all present. Of course, we benefited from the experience of the first concert, and of course, this meant that presenting works which are not quite realized the most traditional way helped us for the second, third, and fourth concert to see how to realize the project at our own venues. This is, of course, not the situation which is usual, and of course, this helped quite a lot, I think, for all the other 3 cities after the Prague experience.
And I would like to add something else, as we also circulated with 2 musicians from other ensembles. That was really such a nice experience. We welcomed 2 musicians from you, Béla, 2 musicians from Unser ensemble. So then the knowledge actually was circulating also among the 4 ensembles, because the musicians who have already experienced performing the pieces could pass the knowledge on the next ensemble, which I found really, really great.
Yes, Olga.
I want to answer the question of Kasia Bartosz in the chat. She's asking whether the recordings of all pieces will be available, and that's really true. The recordings from all concerts will be available, and also scores will be published on our websites, and it will be available, so it's possible to listen to the whole pieces with the the score. And concerning the advantages of experiencing our cooperation, I would like to add what Béla just said, that there was, I hope, and I would like to hear the confirmation from the composers or not. I don't know, what do you think? But I think really the advantage of the project was that there were performances of the pieces in 4 different places in a row, which is absolutely exceptional in contemporary music, because normally the piece performed maybe once and then you wait another 10 years until it comes back to the program. So I think that for you, it must have been really good experience to see and work with different ensembles, different performers in the different places, and have it in a short period of time. So you have, I guess you have learned a lot from how to work with this piece.
Yeah, if I can answer that, I think this was really one of the most exceptional things about the project. I think it's extremely unusual, like you said, to get 2 performances of anything, and to have 4 with 4 different ensembles that also have different kind of organizational structures and different working methods and different environments that they work in, and approaches to that, and different relationships with their conductor. That was also very interesting, because let's say 3 of the ensembles had their kind of stable artistic director / conductor, and in Warsaw it was a guest conductor, because Hashtag is much more kind of bottom up organized. It was a really great learning experience. I also just wanted to add to the previous question, just so that we don't say, the scores and pieces will be out at some point. Eva, is it okay to share the links to the videos now in the chat, so that if people want to listen right now, they can?
Sure. There is a playlist of all the 4 pieces, so feel free to share the link, of course. So far, it's unlisted on our YouTube channel, because we wanted to, gradually open the pieces to public, but of course the playlist can be shared by anyone, and it also can be incorporated in the RenMus website immediately, Agnieszka, if you want.
Yes, I will post it, and we will also make available all the other recordings from the other concerts, but it requires a lot of work actually, so please give us a little more time to do it. I think by the end of the year, all of the recordings will be there in the public space.
Yeah, but the Prague recordings are now ready to go.
They're in the chat. The link is in the chat if you want to check it out. Maybe we could ask for more questions from the audience before we talk over them.
Yes, of course. We invite everyone to share their question. You can write it on chat, or you can join the discussion, please.
I would like to add maybe that we aimed at pieces that are, of course, doable in the garden environment, but the concert hall doesn't exclude the experience at all. And this is what we thought about the renewability of music, that, of course, it was meant to be performed at the garden parks, at the city parks, but of course, it's also doable in the regular concert halls.
So is there anybody else, maybe within the participants of this discussion, who would like to add something or build up on the subjects we discussed? Yes, Jagoda Szmętka, we have one question from the audience.
Yes, hello. So first of all, I would like to congratulate you to this huge project, and to the organizers and the composers, organizers. And I wanted to ask maybe composers, like, if you, like, of course, there's you, like, did you, how, to which degree did you take under consideration that there must be a place in the piece, inside of the composition, for this additional sounds? Because it was like a thing discussed here, so I saw it was an issue, and where the composition will be or will be not. And I pose these questions maybe in the context of the fact that this topic maybe is related often to sort of art that is site-specific, can be, or some large part of, I speak now widely, not just music, but also just fine arts or arts general. So did you think about it? Because you have your pauses, you have sounds and you have pauses. So what was the concept? Did you were aware like that in your compositions the fact will be no silence in conventional in a way, or like did you
if I can answer. So for me, what you're describing was really the central concept of the piece. And when I was starting to plan it, I was really walking around this hill and listening, like what sounds are constant, what sounds kind of come through as interruptions. And those are really the main ones, is the church bells and the car horns and cars driving by. And then for me, like, I think this, I really love this idea, you know, from at least since John Cage, we have this idea that you don't only have to listen to the isolated piece, but also it exists in an environment that has its own sounds. And it's really, for me, it was a huge revelation to change, kind of flip this.
Is it in structure? Like, is it in a way in a structure present?
And so for, like, what I'm getting to is that I think quite often for me, it works to have this in quite an open way, that you're responding to the environment, that you choose when to put in the sounds. But with this piece, I wanted to have a really clear structure that was kind of fixed over this, but where the silences for these sounds to come out are kind of written into the piece. And that was also the use of field recordings. Quite often it was a long field recording that's quite quiet. And then suddenly a bell rings and it stops, and you hear that actually you were listening to cars and birds from a different place, and now they're gone. But what's left is not silence, but it's the birds and cars.
Do you have like this tape with the field recording for the entire composition, or just part of it?
Parts of it. I mean, most of the time there is electronic sounds, but also there are silences kind of cutting through the whole time.
But the electronic part, it's audio projection and it's a tape, or it's live electronics.
It's fixed.
It's a tape. It's a fixed media. And this is like environmental sounds, like with the cars and bells and so on. But also some sort of noise, right? Because there is never a bell isolated in. Okay. And the others? Thank you. So like, okay, if you are like in the composition is performed in a concert hall, then you reconstruct this environmental aspect through your tape. And if there's performed outdoor, then anyway, the tape connects it to the surrounding.
Exactly.
And is anyone else who would like to respond to the question?
Maybe I can respond. Hi. Well, for me, it was not that much organized, because we had 4 completely different areas. So for me, it wasn't exactly site-specific piece, because there were 4 different sites, right? But in general, I know that some sounds from the city or different kind of sounds will come and join our pieces. So the main idea for me was that it will be great, that it will blend. But I didn't really have specific places in my score silently waiting for the sounds from the outside world, if you know what I mean. It's just a general idea.
I know, like that you in a structure have a gap to be filled by the environment. This is what you meant, right? I think this is how I got it.
I didn't have these gaps, but in general, I was aware that many sounds will come up, and I was totally okay with that. Actually, I was kind of waiting for this to happen, because this is very interesting, and every place has different sounds, so different flavors, every performance.
Yeah, and Kasia, did you have also like electronic? I'm sorry, but it was like short, and you know, like you had also, but you had this also like handy, right? You had this mobile aspect also in your piece, like nature and the mobile. It's
Well,
another question, so I don't want to go there, but yeah. But did you project like environmental sounds in your composition too, or?
Yes, I had
Yes.
also fixed media. It was like tape from the beginning to the end of the piece. And I have
And
many
material-wise?
all from field recording, all of it.
Okay.
But some of the sounds are highly processed, so it doesn't always sounds like the original source.
Okay.
Thank you.
I
Thanks.
think Sama wanted to answer also.
Yeah. For my piece, it was quite from a different perspective, I think, than in, for instance, in Ian's piece, because I was trying to work with sound foreground and background, and from and my the form of my piece is in an arc shape, and it the idea behind it was that the sounds of environment are more in the foreground on the very beginning and very end of the piece, and the music is gradually coming from the background to the foreground throughout the piece, and is just like crossfading music versus environment sounds.
It's interesting that you do not label the sounds as music. So you have music and you have the sounds of environment. I'm sorry, it's just a little remark from the from the site. But you also, I think, approach this topic very differently as a composer, because like you touch this sustainability really going to your other works and somehow dealing with the things that come back. So it was, I think, like a different thing. No? Or you also thought about this environment? I'm not sure, but as I saw, because, you know, there was like a coming back of things, you know, like, and you just wanted to outsource like something from the things that you already had, as I noted, for me anyway. So you worked with the simplicity and the reduction, but also your former compositions, and you were deriving some things. And I think you've been speaking a lot about it, and so I found that you worked with this topic very differently, that you are already like really in this, your composition world, and somehow you try to, you know, put a leg or a hand outside and then digest it and in your specific way. But yeah. But I'm sorry, but with this environmental sounds, it's difficult also by short recording to know, like you had also a recording of environment or not?
No.
No, you don't have. Okay.
No, I had just real processed audio to tape delay and some pre-recorded synths as bass ground throughout the piece, some drones, but not sounds of environment. This for me, it was completely up to the each venue to what kind of sounds the venue can provide for my piece.
I must say I didn't understand how this would function, but yeah, from compositional perspective, you know, like what does it mean? I maybe give a small example, but it's not really nature sounds, but Different Trains by Steve Reich. And this is like one could say possibly site-specific composition, because he really imitates like this sort of train sounds pretty vividly, and yeah, this yesterday's speaker, like Marsilio, I think he's here. It was maybe the topic of his presentation yesterday. But yeah, so he really reconstructed the sounds, and there is tape with recorded sounds. And once I really heard it in the railway station. So it was like really, you had a train composed for a string quartet, you had trains in a tape of the piece, and then real life trains just going everywhere. So it was like really piece speaking with this environment, or could. It functions well in a concert hall, but when it is presented in a specific space, speaking to the content of the piece, it's somehow there. But yeah, I've been really interested, and I thought also, like, as composers, how you deal with the silence and pauses. Like, what is this? Because we can compose material, and also this, what is not a space for material. So like I was just, and with environment, it's something specific. So I just wanted to ask you what you think about it. And yeah.
Yes, every space was quite different. So every space provided different kind of sound environment. And for me personally, that was the element I was trying to work with. For me, as I was saying, the music, because my piece started, I think it's not on the video, but it started during the pause between the pieces, between, I think it was Máté's piece and my piece. And I had 3 sine waves there, which were meant as the beginning of my piece, and then after this break between pieces, ensemble started to play to the music, but it was really slow fading, and this was the idea to make the music to slowly come to the audience consciousness and break through the sounds of environment.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, just maybe one thing, like at the end, it's possible that you project sound onto the space. And what I wanted to say is that you can allow and preview in your composition that the space projects onto your composition. It was like, this was just this thing, like double side projection. But yeah, but it's exactly, it's maybe another, maybe it's Cajun in a way, but there is something maybe different in this probability or unpredictability of the performance. But I think it's not really the highlight of this situation with the ecology and the space. It's something really interesting. Does it bring something new to the Cage understanding of silence or not? Like this environmental concerts. Maybe this is the question to organizers. Did you think about it? Is it like speaking with Cage, or there is something new?
I would say that we really thought of the environment very carefully, and we wanted the city sounds be part of the concert experience, both for the audiences and for the composers. So I think the composers, in a way, where from the very beginning, they knew the soundscapes of the concert places in a way, and they knew these wouldn't be silent concert hall soundscapes, of course. So anyway, they knew the soundscape would be present. So yeah.
But not too much, Eva, not too much.
Not the highway one, I know. That was a problem, yes. We discussed this.
Problem. And we had to escape from this city sound.
Exactly, yeah. There were many discussions about the concert places among the composers and us, because of course we wanted to have the city sounds, but there was a certain level where the city sounds were just too present and they would disturb the experience, the concert experience. So this was actually a very learning experience because not every city sound is suitable for a concert situation. So now all the organizers are now aware of the fact that there are situations that can be that are possible for this and that are not. So
I think Eva, that venue of concert in Prague was fantastic. Was exact as it should be.
I know, but it was really like months and months that we were really researching the gardens and the environments and everything. And as we already mentioned, me and Jan, originally we planned it for a totally different garden, but in the end we realized that the sound environment cannot be controlled by us, and we wanted to at least a little bit control the sound environment, not to have unpredictable, let's say, party sounds, which would be the case in a garden that is open to public without any restrictions, especially in the summer, and Prague is full of tourists.
Very, very interesting was place in Bratislava, where there were a lot of children shouting during the performance.
Yeah, we even had a roller skater going into the onto the stage during the rehearsal, so we had to stop the kids from going to the stage on their scooters.
Yes, I just wanted to point out the unexpected elements of this experiment. When we go out and we leave the traditional set of the concert hall where people are expected to behave in a certain way and keep quiet about, don't talk, and there's a certain code of behavior in a concert hall. When we go out, I mean, for example, in Budapest, there were lots of unexpected things, partly disturbing, partly funny, but we have to take this into account. It's not going to be the same as being in a traditional environment.
Like outdoor concerts are also in a way more paired. I mean, in the last years, but speaking about, like, I'm thinking now about history of music, like in general, because we had music composed for outdoors, right?
Yeah.
Like there were especially wind instruments because they are not so reacting to temperature, for example. So there is music already composed for outdoors, and for example, this composing for that purpose of music being played outdoors, for example, was then reflected in instrumentation, because nobody would write for a violin outdoor music, because rather it would not be so happily played by violinists outdoor, right? Because this instrument reacts extremely to temperatures and humidity and so on. But for example, flutist or trumpet, especially maybe even blech, they are not so against going to play outdoor, or it is better for the instrument. So or there is like a church, like we speak about the birth of the polyphony, and the two architecture of a particular place influenced structure of music. So I don't know what is the actually tradition of this outdoor concerts, how long it is really present. Is it like in a classicism, and then it's like composers were writing it, but there was also a different culture of music, and commissioners, let's say, were courtly or churchly, and today we have different commissioners of music. It's a different institutional context of creating new music. And like I was wondering, does it influence in general, like is there a gap, like outdoor concerts between classicism and today? I don't know.
The commissions for outdoor concerts since the 17th century, let's say, took the weather into account. So the musicians very often performed in some kind of a muscle, like muszel, a closed area that projected sound into the garden.
And And what about Handel? Water music, firework music?
Yeah, exactly. So there were occasions like this. With this event, I would say that the most complications were not the instruments, but the electronics and all the technical equipment that in case of rain were not so easily taken away. So we have to figure it out for the future, because today the composers are really keen on composing with a lot of electronics, with a lot of mics, with a lot of cables and so on. And this has to be somehow, be taken into account, and things like that have to be planned or,
And it was the case in Bratislava. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it was the danger of the rain was there during the whole performances, but unfortunately in Bratislava we were really into the rain. So,
and I'm not only talking about weather disturbances. I'm talking about in Budapest, for example, barking dogs. We are in a city park, and somebody is coming with the dog and it starts barking. We can hear the noises of the buffet calling for the next person to collect the hamburger, which is ready.
Or beer.
Announcing the numbers. We can hear the aeroplane passing.
But only Hungarians could understand what is being there, because
so once we go out of the traditional setup, we have to give up certain expectations. Of course, the preparations are precise or can be precise, but there are always unexpected elements which we cannot predict. We cannot. Of course, we can close off the area and say, don't come in with the dog, something like that. But we didn't plan in this way.
But this is. But this is also a question of dynamics of music. Like if this would be one violin, it is probably all covered. If the piece is in mezzo piano or piano, you cannot expect in a huge garden or many trees, or there is no feedback, there is no reflections from the walls of the sound, so it goes nowhere. And why to play it? Or you need to amplify it and have this or loudspeakers, or you must have string orchestra. I don't know, that it's at least something audible, or music must be forte fortissimo. And if there is an autobahn next to it, so these are the things. But I was really curious if there was in 20th century music written for outdoor, especially this. I don't know. The futurists or the fabrics, I know these things, but a nature and stuff. But
James Tenney has a series of pieces called Music for Large Open Spaces. So that's one. Dieter Schnabel has this piece for 6 motorcycles and brass, which also has to be performed out. I mean, I guess if you found a concert hall that can fit 6 Harley Davidson, then that could work. That's just what I thought of now.
Helicopters also.
And that the whole symphony for the city that can be performed by thousands of performers. But the case here, actually, when we were putting together the open call, I personally hoped for the immersive pieces. And we didn't put it into the open call because we were curious what the composers would come up with. Because if you tell them we want immersive pieces, everybody will come up with it. And actually in the Czech Republic, there were pieces like this because, we are crazy enough to do these kinds of things. As I mentioned, we had a sound walk for 250 people. I personally hoped that we would enliven the whole garden and people would walk around the garden and hear the compositions, which didn't happen. There are many options for these open door.
I had simply now more from this compositional perspective, what is the impact of writing for outdoor on the musical structure simply, maybe there is a publication, but it was not until, I was not really thinking about this from this side. But there is a question also in the chat.
Yes,
so thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Jagoda. I didn't want to interrupt. So First, I will allow Máté to say goodbye because he messaged me that he really has to go now.
It is true. Thank you for letting me be here. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's a pity that you are leaving. We have a question at the chat.
Yes,
so if you
yes,
can-
yes. I wanted to address this question.
It's a question for composers, I believe. So maybe, Máté,
Agnieszka,
before you leave,
could
maybe
you
you
read
can
it?
address this question before you
Yes.
leave.
So I will just read the question. So the question is, do you stick to the written music during your concerts, or do you offer spaces for the artist to improvise during the performance with the effect of the environment or the weather conditions at that moment? What role do such variables play in your nature-inspired music?
Yeah, so in my case, actually, it was a closed work, so there was not really any space for the musicians to do something independently from the score. But what I thought that in every case I should recompose the thing because of the different environment. So my basic idea was that actually my piece is going to have 4 very different versions. But finally it didn't happen because somehow the different venues were quite similar. So I mean okay, maybe in Bratislava not really because there were some action, but still the sound, as far as the sound is concerned, it was quite similar. So more or less quiet. Even in Budapest, it was more or less quiet. Sometimes interrupted by some sudden noises, but the basis sound environment was similar. So it was not necessary finally. But once again, my main idea was to make a flexible piece which can be rearranged in every case for the special venue. That's all, which can be said as a kind of flexibility in my case. Yeah.
Thank you, Máté. Any other brief comments before we end the discussion?
Yeah, if I can. Just to answer this question as well, because I was really, for a very long time, I was really hoping to have at least a part in my piece where it would be very literally like this. So, for example, there would be an instruction for the musician that if you hear a bird singing, you play this sound. If you hear a car horn honking, you play this sound. Or you wait 5 seconds and then you do something. So really to have this kind of game system where the music would be determined by the environment. But the problem with this, and also I think a problem a little bit with what Eva was describing with the installation pieces, is that it's kind of impossible to make 4 site-specific, or make one site-specific piece that works as a site-specific piece in 4 very different environments, right? So I think even if they were all kind of urban gardens, it would be possible. But because we had these, very different spaces, then in the end, I decided not to do this.
No, okay. So I think that we have to end the discussion. So I would like to thank you to all our panelists and all attendees for joining us today and for insightful discussion. To briefly sum up, so we explored today the core themes of the Creative Europe project, Renewable Music before Composers for Sustainability. Our composers shared diverse perspectives on what renewable music means to them and how it manifests in their pieces. We also discussed challenges and opportunities and unexpected elements of implementing our project and organizing open-air concerts in general. So we encourage everyone to apply the insights gained from this discussion to foster creativity and collaboration and sustainable practices in your future musical endeavors. So thank you once again for your participation and engagement. And now I will give the floor to Eva Kesslová, who will lead our first panel today.